Joining us now is Rich Rubino. He's a political analyst and historian. Rich, thank you so much for joining us to discuss. So how paralyzed is Congress right now without a House Speaker? What are the implications of what we saw unfold this week?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. And they are very paralyzed right now. There's actually a couple of candidates potentially that are running for Speaker. You have Steve Scalise from Louisiana, Jim Jordan from Ohio, Congressman Kevin Hern from Oklahoma. But it's basically just, first of all, from a public relations standpoint, it definitely has deleterious effects upon the Republican Party, because the average kind of low propensity voter is looking at this and they're saying, what is going on in the House of Representatives? Why aren't they shepherding legislation through? Why are they dealing with this? But certainly, unless you have a Speaker of the House, very little can actually get done. You have a Speaker pro tem who can, but it's essentially a ceremonial role, and he does not have a lot of the same power that the Speaker actually has right now. But there's certainly, it is certainly a quagmire right now in the Republican House.
Yeah, especially as another government shutdown possibly looms within just a number of days. But this situation is unprecedented. The House has never ousted a speaker, which means we've never had an elected official serve in the interim role. We know North Carolina Congressman Patrick McHenry is serving in that interim role. But because there's no precedent for this situation, can he change the limited powers that are given to the interim speaker? I mean, what are the challenges that could pose?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think theoretically, perhaps there could have been something prior to this where Kevin McCarthy could have somehow changed the law, or because basically under law, the reason it's Patrick McHenry rather than any member of the majority party, by the way, is because that was the designated successor. Kevin McCarthy essentially trusted him. He viewed him as being a very loyal Fidelis ally. That's why he chose him. The closest we ever had in terms of precedent, by the way, was actually 1910. And that was Joe Cannon. And Joe Cannon was known as Czar Cannon. He liked to be called Uncle Joe, but he was known as Czar Cannon. He was chairman of the Rules Committee while at the same time consummately also being Speaker of the House. And there was a movement by Democrats and moderate Republicans to oust him from the Rules Committee. That worked. Then there was a movement to vacate the chair, and that was a miserable failure. But since then, we've not had a motion to vacate the chair actually go against the incumbent Speaker of the House.
Such an interesting situation, and we keep finding ourselves in these unprecedented times, politically speaking. And now let's talk about another interesting piece to this puzzle. Former President Donald Trump had teased taking up the gavel until a permanent speaker was appointed. GOP House rules currently prohibit anyone under a criminal indictment on felony charges carrying more than a 2-year sentence from Republican leadership. Trump facing 4 criminal indictments. Two-part question here. Could Republicans actually elect him? Is there any chance this actually happens, and what is the fallout if that does?
It's pretty de minimis. The chance of this actually happening, it's not going to happen, because I'll tell you why. First of all, there are 18 members of the House of Representatives who represent congressional districts that elected Joe Biden last time. And imagine you need 218 votes to elect someone as Speaker. It's true, Speaker does not have to be a sitting member. You need 218 votes. And imagine one of those congressmen or another congressman who represents a district where Biden maybe lost by 3 or 4 points, going back to their constituents and saying, I just elected Donald Trump as Speaker of the House. Just from a self-preservation is the first rule of human survival, right? Imagine going back to your constituents and saying that. So it's not going to happen. It's more political theater. It's more performative than anything else. But obviously, if you come from a conservative district right now, you want to say, I want Trump as the Speaker of the House, and you're going to score political points in your own congressional district, I think.
And last question, we just have a few seconds left here. With the candidates that have put themselves forward right now, do you see this process moving forward smoothly, or do you think we're going to have a repeat of how Speaker McCarthy was elected with all of those rounds of voting and much contention?
I think it's going to go over more smoothly, because at least the two front runners right now, there is not as much division on the right wing of the Republican Party. Even Matt Gaetz has said that Congressman Scalise, who's seen as kind of the establishment candidate, is somebody that potentially he could vote for. The other member, Kevin Hern, is on the Republican Study Committee, the very conservative committee. He's the chairman of that. And Jim Jordan is obviously kind of a tribune of the conservative movement right now. So I don't think you're going to have nearly as much opposition on the right, and some on the more left wing of the Republican Party are just going to want to get this over with so they can go back to their constituents and say, this is what I've actually accomplished legislatively. This is the largesse I brought to the district.
Yeah, and hopefully we will see that vote happen in just the next few days this coming week. Political analyst Rich Rubino, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on.